You are the draft horse, Jenny. You were born to pull the carriage so the swan can shine. My mother did not even look up from her magazine as she said it. She just pointed a manicured finger at the stack of invoices on the coffee table. $50,000. That was the price of my sister Lisa's dream wedding, and apparently, it was my job to pay for it. Don't think you deserve to sit at the same table, she added, her voice flat and cold. You pay the bill. Lisa wears the crown. That is the natural order. Lisa sat across from her, scrolling through her phone, smirking like this was all a boring formality. I did not cry. I did not scream. I walked over, picked up the bills, and folded them into my pocket. They thought it was submission. They did not know I was collecting evidence. I walked out of that house without a word, and the silence was louder than any scream. You might wonder why I did not throw those invoices back in her face right then and there. You might wonder why a 29-year-old woman with a director title would let her mother speak to her like a servant. The answer is not weakness. It is conditioning. They did not just break my spirit overnight. They dismantled it piece by piece, starting when I was 12 years old. I remember waking up in the hospital, the air thick with the smell of antiseptic and fear. My leg was in traction, my ribs were taped, and there was a dull, throbbing ache behind my eyes. I had survived a car accident that totaled our family sedan. I was just a terrified little girl waiting for a hug. Instead, I got a ledger. My father, Gerald, sat by the bed. He did not hold my hand. He held a calculator. We sold the house, Jenny, he said, his voice trembling with a staged grief I would not recognize as fake for another decade. The insurance did not cover the surgeries. We had to sell the house, the car, everything. We are bankrupt because we chose to keep you alive. He looked at me with tears in his eyes, but they were not tears of relief. They were tears of resentment. You owe this family your life, he whispered. Don't you ever forget the price tag on your breath. That was the day I stopped being a daughter and started being a debtor. I carried that guilt like a stone in my stomach. I grew up apologizing for existing. I ate less so they could have more. I wore clothes from the donation bin so Lisa could have the new trends. I believed I was a parasite that had fed on their fortune, so I spent the next decade trying to pay it back. The real crushing blow came when I was 18. I had been accepted into the state university with a partial scholarship. It was my ticket out. I brought the acceptance letter to the kitchen table, my hands shaking with excitement. Sophia did not even read it. She just ripped it in half. You are going to leave? She asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. After we sacrificed our future for your lungs? Who is going to pay the bills, Jenny? Your father's back is gone. Lisa needs braces. You are going to work, and you are going to pay us back every cent we lost on you. So, I did. I did not go to orientation. I went to the temp agency. For 5 years, I worked 3 jobs. I was a waitress during the lunch rush, a janitor at the office park in the evenings, and I took the graveyard shift answering calls for a trucking company. I slept 4 hours a night. My hands were raw from bleach. My feet were permanently swollen. And every Friday, I handed my paycheck to Gerald. He would count it in front of me, frowning if it was $10 short. It is a start, he would say, pocketing the money. But the interest is piling up. And where did that money go? It did not go to debts. It went to Lisa. While I was scrubbing toilets to pay for my accident, Lisa was posting photos from her study abroad semester in Florence. My tips paid for her pasta. My night shifts paid for her designer handbags. My existence funded her gap year where she found herself on beaches in Bali. I was the draft horse, blinders on, head down, plowing the field until I died. Lisa was the swan, floating effortlessly on the lake I had dug for her. I believed the lie. I believed I was paying off a debt of honor. I did not know then that the ledger was rigged. I did not know that the bankruptcy was a myth. I was sacrificing my youth to pay for a ghost. But ghosts have a funny way of showing up when you turn on the lights. And I was about to find the light switch. It took 11 years for the truth to catch up with the lie. It did not come with a bang or a confession. It came in a dusty cardboard box labeled Archives, 2012 to 2014. I am the director of medical credentialing at St. Jude's Hospital now. My job is literally to verify the truth, to make sure doctors are who they say they are, to ensure every nurse has a valid license, to protect the hospital from liability. Part of our new digital initiative involved scanning old physical records into the cloud. It was boring. Administrative work. The kind I usually delegated. But that Tuesday, I decided to stay late and do a batch myself. I liked the quiet of the office. It felt safe. I pulled a file from the stack. The name on the tab made my breath hitch. Jenny L. Ross. It was my old medical file from the accident. I opened it, expecting to see x-rays and surgical notes. I found those, but tucked in the back, stapled to a legal addendum, was a photocopy of a settlement check from the insurance company. I stared at the number until the digits blurred. $350,000. The insurance had not denied the claim. They had paid out the maximum policy limit plus damages for pain and suffering. $350,000. That was not just enough to cover my surgeries. It was enough to buy a house, pay for college, and still have a safety net. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. I flipped the page. There was a disbursement form, dated 2 days after my 18th birthday. It authorized the transfer of the full trust amount into a joint account held by Gerald and Sophia Ross. And there, at the bottom, was my signature. I remembered that day. It was my birthday. But there was no cake. Gerald had brought a notary to the kitchen table. Just standard hospital discharge papers, honey, he had said, handing me a pen. We need to close out the billing so the debt collectors stop calling. Sign here, so we can finally breathe. I had signed it. I had signed away my freedom, because I trusted the people who gave me life. They did not just steal the money. They looked me in the eye, told me we were destitute because of my existence, and then used my own hand to rob me. That is the true genius of the guilt trip mechanism. It is the perfect crime because the victim polices themselves. My parents took an asset, my pain, my settlement, and chemically altered it into a debt. They convinced me that I was a liability, a walking expense report that could never be balanced. By making me believe I owed them for my survival, they ensured I would never look for the profit they made off my tragedy. They did not just want the cash. They wanted a servant. And guilt is a much stronger chain than steel. But as I sat there in the glow of my monitor, the guilt evaporated. It was replaced by a clarity so sharp it felt like a knife. If they lied about the money, what else were they lying about? I closed my file and opened the current HR database. Lisa had just been hired as a floor nurse in the pediatric wing, a job she got because her fiancé, Marcus, pulled strings with the hiring manager. I had not checked her file before because of the conflict of interest. Now, I was interested. I pulled up her profile. Lisa Ross, registered nurse. Degree, University of Phoenix Online. I copied her license number and ran it through the State Board of Nursing database. It is a public search. Anyone can do it. I typed it in and hit enter. No records found. I tried her name. No records found. I tried her social security number. No records found. My heart hammered against my ribs. Lisa did not have a nursing license. The diploma in her file was a Photoshop job. It was a decent forgery, good enough to fool an overworked HR assistant. But to a trained eye, the font on the seal was 2 points off. She was practicing medicine without a license. That is a felony. That is prison time. I sat back in my ergonomic chair, the hum of the server room the only sound in the empty office. I looked at the 2 piles of paper on my desk. On the left, proof that my parents had embezzled over $250,000 from their own child. On the right, proof that my sister was a fraud who was endangering patients. They thought I was the draft horse. Blinders on, head down, plowing the field until I died. They forgot that the draft horse is the strongest animal on the farm, and when it kicks, it does not miss. I did not call the police. Not yet. That would be too fast. I opened a new digital folder on my encrypted drive and named it The Black Dossier. I scanned the settlement check. I scanned the fake diploma. I downloaded the HR logs. Then, I picked up my phone. It was time to make a deal. I dialed my mother. I did not need to act. The exhaustion in my voice was real, even if the defeat was fake. Hello? Sophia answered on the second ring. Her tone sharp, impatient. You win, I said, letting my voice crack just enough. I cannot take the fighting anymore. I will pay for the wedding. The silence on the other end was heavy with satisfaction. I could practically hear her smiling. Well, she huffed. It took you long enough to come to your senses. The final deposit is due Friday. I know, I said. I am liquidating my 401k to get the cash. It is going to be $50,000. But there is a catch. Of course there is, she snapped. What now? My accountant is breathing down my neck about the withdrawal. I lied smooth and quick. To avoid a massive penalty, I need to categorize the past family support, the money for the accident, as a specific type of fostering expense. I have a form. I need you and Dad to sign it. It just says you received the funds for my care. That allows me to write off the new payment. It was nonsense. Legal gibberish mixed with financial buzzwords. But greedy people do not fact-check when you are waving a checkbook in their face. Fine, she said, dismissive. Just bring the money. We will sign your little paper. Meet me at the hospital boardroom tomorrow at 6, I said. It has to be notarized. Don't be late, Jenny. Lisa is stressed enough as it is. She hung up. I set the phone down and turned back to my computer screens. Phase 1 was complete. Now for Phase 2. I pulled up the HR dashboard again. Lisa's file was glowing red with a pending verification flag. The system was doing its job. It knew her license number did not exist. In 24 hours, that flag would trigger an automatic rejection letter. I could not let that happen. If she got rejected by the system, she was just a failed applicant. I needed her to be an employee. I needed her to be liable. I typed in my admin credentials. Override authorization. Director level. I clicked the box that said manual verification completed. The red flag turned green. Active status. I watched the screen for a moment. I had just given a fraudster the keys to the castle. I had just allowed my sister to walk into a felony charge. It was a violation of every protocol I had ever written. But this was not compliance anymore. This was war. By forcing the system to accept her, I ensured that when she fell, she would not just trip on the doorstep, she would plummet from the roof. The next evening, I prepped the room. The hospital boardroom is a cold place. Glass walls, gray carpet, a mahogany table long enough to land a plane on. It is designed for intimidation. I arrived 30 minutes early. I placed a single folder in the center of the table. Inside was the document. It was not a tax form. It was a debt acknowledgement affidavit. By signing it, they would be admitting they received the $350,000 11 years ago. Legally, acknowledging an old debt in writing resets the statute of limitations. It wakes the dead. I took my phone out. I dialed a number. Dr. Marcus, I said when he answered. And Mr. Henderson. That was the hospital's general counsel. Are you ready? We are, Marcus said. His voice was tight, angry. I had briefed them both an hour ago. I had shown them the black dossier. They knew about the fake degree. They knew about the theft. Now, they just needed to hear the confession. I am going to put the phone down now, I said. Do not speak until I give the signal. Understood, the lawyer said. I set the phone face down on the polished wood, right next to the folder. The call timer ticked silently. The line was open. The trap was set. 5 minutes later, the heavy glass doors swung open. Sophia, Gerald, and Lisa swept into the boardroom like a royal procession entering a conquered city. They smelled of expensive perfume and unearned confidence. My mother wore a silk blouse that probably cost more than my first car. My father adjusted the cuffs of a suit bought with the interest from my stolen future. And Lisa, the swan, was radiant. She flaunted a diamond ring on her finger that caught the harsh fluorescent lights, sending little daggers of glare across the table. She did not look like a fraud facing a felony charge. She looked like a woman who had won the lottery. Well, Sophia said, dropping her designer bag onto the table with a heavy thud. Let's get this over with. The florist is waiting for the final deposit. She did not look at me. She looked at the folder. To them, I was not a person. I was a vending machine that had temporarily malfunctioned and was finally dispensing cash again. The check is right there, I said, my voice quiet. As soon as the affidavit is signed, it is yours. Lisa snatched the folder and flipped it open. She did not read a single word of the text. She just looked for the signature line. 50,000. Lisa smirked, tapping her manicured nail on the table. Honestly, Jen, it is the least you could do. After all the stress you caused this week? Mom was literally crying yesterday. I am sorry, I said. I just want to make it right. See? Lisa turned to our mother. I told you she would fold. She always does. Lisa leaned in close, mocking my title in office, calling me nothing but her personal bank account. She bragged that Marcus never checked her credentials, admitting her degree was fake, and that she stole my insurance money. The phone on the table blinked live. Gerald forced me to sign, snarling that they owned me, then passed the pen around. All three signed without reading, blinded by the promise of $50,000. I checked the signatures and smiled for the first time in 11 years. Instead of pulling out a check, I pointed at the phone. Marcus came through the speaker cold, precise, confirming he heard everything. He fired Lisa on the spot, reported her to the nursing board, canceled the wedding, and cut the call. She collapsed. Sophia lunged at me, screaming I had ruined her life, but security entered with the hospital's general counsel. Henderson informed my parents they were being escorted out and investigated for fraud and falsified credentials. Lisa begged me to fix it. I told her softly that the draft horse was not smart enough, remember? Before they left, I revealed the truth about the paper they signed. It was not a tax form. It was a debt acknowledgement affidavit. By admitting in writing that they stole my settlement 11 years ago, they reset the statute of limitations. They now legally owed me $350,000 plus compound interest, nearly $600,000 total. Gerald threatened to sue. I calmly told him he was already bankrupt. Security removed them while they screamed. 10 minutes later, I blocked every one of them. Lisa lost her license and career. My parents lost their house after my lawyer filed the lien. I kept my job, posted proof so they could never lie again, and drove home in silence, realizing I was not lonely. I was free. Have you ever had family turn favors into chains? Drop a freedom in the comments if you believe you do not owe anyone your life. Subscribe to see more justice served cold.